All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Now, before we get into the weeds, I do want to offer a quick, responsible disclaimer. What we're exploring today is educational behavioral psychology. It's fascinating stuff, but it's not medical advice or therapy, so always consult a professional if you're making major behavioral or mental health changes. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about a cycle we literally all know too well. You know the drill. You make the big resolution, you hit the gym, you sit down to write that novel, or you swear you're finally going to stop doom scrolling in bed. And you start out incredibly strong. But then, like clockwork, the motivation just kind of fades. Old habits sneak back in, and suddenly you are right back to square one. It is universally frustrating, isn't it? To fix this, we're going to look at what is essentially a literal architectural blueprint for permanent change. We'll take this nice and steady. Today we're covering 1. The willpower trap, 2. The identity shift, 3. Building habit systems, 4. Designing your environment, 5. Freeing cognitive resources, and finally, 6. The implementation blueprint. So why do resolutions actually fail? Take a second and really think about that. Because here is the absolute truth that nobody tells you. Your actions don't fail because you're lazy. Not at all. They fail because you're trying to change your behavior without actually changing who you are. Which brings us to section 1, the willpower trap. Most people fight this whole battle relying on fleeting motivation. And honestly, your brain perceives that as a constant, exhausting struggle. Here's why. Fighting between who you currently think you are and who you desperately want to become creates this completely unsustainable internal conflict. Simply put, your brain absolutely hates contradiction. If deep down you see yourself as a couch potato, but you're aggressively forcing yourself to run 3 miles every single day, the resulting internal friction is eventually going to exhaust you. You'll burn right out. Let's move into section 2, the identity shift. Now here is a massive plot twist. It turns out identity drives behavior, not the other way around. Consider the difference between two people trying to drop a bad habit. A smoker who is actively trying to quit usually says something like, "No thanks, I'm trying not to smoke." Notice that? They still deeply identify as a smoker, they're just currently resisting the urge. But a non-smoker, they just say, "No thanks, I don't smoke." They don't even think about cigarettes. It's the exact same substance, but a totally different identity. Shifting how you see yourself actually removes that internal conflict entirely, naturally generating automatic, healthier behaviors. We call this identity architecture. Saying something like, "I am a healthy person," isn't just fluffy, positive thinking. Once you genuinely adopt it, your brain takes it very seriously. Think of your brain as a system uniquely designed to maintain internal alignment. Once you adopt that healthy identity, your brain automatically starts generating behaviors to match it. Why? Because a healthy person doesn't negotiate with themselves about whether or not to exercise, they just do it, because it's simply who they are. All right, section 3, building habit systems. Now you can't just stand in the mirror, declare a new identity, and expect your brain to instantly buy it. Your brain is highly skeptical. It demands tiny proof points. And this brings us to neuroplasticity. If you want to be a writer, you don't start by sitting down to write a massive 500-page novel. You write for just 15 minutes tomorrow. That's it. Your brain takes that tiny, completely friction-free step as undeniable evidence. Over time, you accumulate this evidence and you literally rewire the neural pathways associated with your identity, all without triggering your brain's natural resistance. Once you have those small steps in play, you want to use something called habit stacking. This just means linking your new routine to something you already do on autopilot. Think about pouring a cup of coffee every morning. That neural pathway is deeply, deeply established. It takes zero willpower. So if you tell yourself, "Right after I pour my coffee, I will meditate for exactly 5 minutes, you are effectively piggybacking on that established pathway. The activation energy you need for the new habit drops to pretty much zero. And then we add temptation bundling to the mix. This is where you connect a difficult, maybe slightly annoying behavior with something you genuinely love. So let's say you absolutely hate the treadmill, but you are totally obsessed with true crime podcasts. Make a strict rule for yourself that you only get to find out who did it while you're at the gym. See what's happening? You aren't fighting your brain's reward system here. You're strategically reconfiguring it to associate tough tasks with genuine pleasure. Let's jump to section 4, designing your environment. We're moving into a truly shocking truth discovered by behavioral psychologists. Your physical space is vastly more powerful than your willpower. Think about the phrase, "context is destiny." I really want to let that sink in for a moment.
Our behaviors are shaped far, far more by our surroundings than by our internal character. If you want to permanently change your life, you have to stop solely relying on grit and character and start relying on your environment.
Think about it. If you rely on willpower to eat healthier, but your kitchen pantry is packed with junk food, well, every single time you open a cabinet, you're forcing yourself to make a difficult choice. And that creates serious decision fatigue. But with environmental design, you remove the choice entirely. You just don't buy the junk food in the first place. You sleep in your gym clothes. When you do things like this, your desired identity becomes the absolute path of least resistance. Moving on to Section 5, freeing cognitive resources.
Beyond just the physical friction in your home, we absolutely have to address the mental drain. The trivial, day-to-day choices you constantly make are quietly depleting your prefrontal cortex. This is known as cognitive friction. Every tiny decision, what to wear, what to pack for lunch, when to leave the house, literally burns mental energy. This is exactly why successful people heavily systematize their lives. It's why Steve Jobs famously wore the exact same uniform every single day. He wasn't being lazy, he was strategically saving his finite cognitive resources for what actually mattered.
Here is a crazy limitation for you. Did you know the exact number of pieces of information your working memory can firmly hold at once is just 3 to 4? That's it, 3 to 4. If your brain is constantly overwhelmed with trying to remember little tasks, organize messy thoughts, or manage overlapping projects, you have completely maxed out your working memory before you've even started to do the actual work. That mental overload is precisely what prevents deep, meaningful focus.
To solve this, you need what's called a second brain. This is just an external, trusted system, like a digital app or even a dedicated physical journal that captures all your ideas and tasks. Implementing a second brain is critical infrastructure for your life. It gets the chaotic clutter out of your head, thoroughly clearing your working memory so your brand new identity can fully express itself in a state of absolute flow.
Finally, Section 6, the implementation blueprint.
So how do we actually bring all of this incredibly powerful theory together to systematically reconstruct your daily nature? Well, here are the 7 rules of our blueprint. First, actively define your new identity. Second, ruthlessly design your physical environment to remove friction. Third, commit to tiny, manageable steps to build up that undeniable evidence. Fourth, stack your new behaviors right onto your existing habits. Fifth, bundle your difficult tasks with your favorite temptations. Sixth, build a second brain to clear your mental workspace. And seventh, give it time. Remember, you are literally rebuilding yourself from the ground up, and that takes patience. Ultimately, you just cannot build a life on motivation alone. You can only build a life on systems. Our entire goal here is to reconfigure your neurological reward system so deeply that your desired behaviors naturally feel good, and willpower essentially becomes a thing of the past. I'll leave you with this one provocative question to chew on. Who are you trying to become, and does your current environment actually reflect that identity? Really think about that today. Thank you so much for engaging with this explainer. If you're finally ready to drop the willpower myth and start building a life on rock-solid systems, make sure to subscribe. We'll see you next time.